Hey everyone, this is George Couros with a special solo episode of the Innovator's Mindset podcast. And I'll be honest with you, it is July 19th when I'm recording this. I just sent out an email to my list. I'm going to base what I'm talking about today on that email, but I haven't recorded a podcast in a while. I typically record these ahead of time and release them every Thursday. And part of the reason I haven't released one yet was I just wrote a new book. And probably about 3 weeks ago, this book did not even exist in my mind. And then all of a sudden I was at the gym, came to me, and 2 weeks later I was done. And so the first draft is done. We're going to go through the editing process, put it together. And I don't have a title yet. So I would love if you put in the comments some of your suggestions for a title. I want it to be something aspirational as opposed to negative. The original title that came to my head, and I knew right away, it kind of described the book, but it wouldn't be what the title would be because I do not like gravitating to something negative. So it was this: divide it. Now I know it's kind of cheesy. Moving people forward together in contentious times. So the subtitle really explains what the book is about. So I'm really trying to think about how do I maybe it's just, I've thought about the idea of forward together and, kind of being a little bit more descriptive in the subtitle, but it's basically a book regarding how do we bring people together when it seems to be there's so much animosity. And as I mentioned, this book wasn't even something that I was even thinking about a few weeks ago, but I saw a tweet from someone in West Islip School District. His name is Jesse, and I apologize, I don't know his last name. And he tagged me on something that I was at the gym and I didn't really even think about it. And it was a really great video of the superintendent, Paul Romanelli, who I consider a good friend of mine, and students talking about building a slogan for the year. And it was like a really sweet video. I'll link it down below. And they were talking about why it was important to have a slogan, some ideas that they'd have, but then they actually said, hey, here's something that we shouldn't be answering on our own. Let's get our community involved. And so it was really how they brought their community. And it was just such a wonderful, inspirational idea of really having your fingerprints as a community on what's happening in your school district. And one of the things I keep saying over and over again in the book, which I can't believe I wrote, I was so inspired. And 45,000 words later, it was done. And I talked about basically, for me, when I was a kid, school wasn't central to the community. It was the community. Everything happened because of the school. And that's something I really aspire to. And even in a large area of Long Island, the school district, that's what they're striving toward. So this is something I've been doing for years, is really bringing ideas that are, maybe challenging to people because they're new. There's something that people aren't. And how do you get people that don't agree with you to move forward? But also, are you open to being wrong? Are you open to listening and connecting to that? So the book turned out really, I'm really excited about it. And as I just sat down, I found out I confirmed someone who's going to write the forward, and I'll tell you about that in the future. But I'm really excited to share that with you all. It will be out probably January or February of 2026. And I think it's something that the education community, and honestly, every organization needs right now, because there seems to be more fighting as opposed to more building. And that to me is something I'm really passionate about. And I've done it for years, and I really focused on principles that are really essential to bringing people together. But also, what are some perspectives, things that, could go wrong, things that maybe challenge you. And that is something. So that's why I haven't really been recording, because I've been really diving into this book, and I've been trying to share ideas. I've been taking time to write. I have been blessed with other people, sharing some of their writing as well. So I'm really excited about this book. But again, if you love maybe some suggestions in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. And I want to be honest with you, just like the idea in the book, I'd love to tap into this community of people connecting here too. So that all being said, let's give you some ideas, some content, something that maybe you can be, that can help you. And I was thinking about this recently, is that if you have a new boss, just three things to consider. And you might be thinking, well, I don't need this. I don't have a new boss. So why would I listen to this? Because it's very specific. And for me, when you think about your year that's coming up, and you'll be hearing this probably end of July, we always talk about how it is so essential that we give kids a fresh start every single day. But then we are in the same organizations and we actually will not even give ourselves a fresh start every year, let alone every day. And so wherever you are, I think this advice is applicable. But if you are having a new job, if you are having a new boss, which basically kind of feels like everyone has a new start, what are some of these things that connect with you? And I was also, I thought about the book, What Makes a Great Principal. Obviously, I was the lead author on that. But one of the contributions was from a teacher named Abby Ramos-Stanutz. And she's an incredible teacher. I love her stuff on TikTok. And she says something in the book that was just kind of like a throwaway line almost. And it really stuck with me. And I talked about this in the newsletter, which you can see linked down below. She said, side note, we do not spend enough time acknowledging the emotional trauma of changing principles, but that is for another time. And it was really interesting to me that she said that, because there is like a fear. Like, you get a new boss, you're really nervous about it because who knows what they're going to do. And I was just in Kentucky working with a group of principals this last week that I'm really blessed to, do workshops with them throughout the entire year. And they said, what would you, like, if you were to go to a new school, what's the first thing you would change? And my answer is always the same: nothing. I would actually change nothing. The first thing I would do is really get to know the people, who they are, and really try to make sure that I understand what is already good in that building, what are the strengths of each individual, and how do I tap into that? Because, as you go into these new organizations, people think you're coming there with the mentality that you're trying to fix everything. And that's where you get the fights. That's where you get the pushback. But when people feel valued, and this is something I talk about in the new book, they'll go along the ride with you. And it might actually change some of the hopes and aspirations that you had when you first took that job. But it is really, you'll go so much further when you build on the strengths of what people are already good at. And so Abby's comments really reminding that. So when you think about that new opportunity, what are some things, a new boss coming into your organization, or you starting a new job, or just you recalibrating your own thinking towards yourself? What are some of the things that could be really helpful to you? And so this is inspired. I actually had a point in my career, and I've talked about this several times, where I was so done with education. I wanted out, and I gave it one more year, got a new role in a school as a temporary contract. And with my superintendent, or my former deputy superintendent, who at the time was my principal, Kelly Wilkins, who I have had the utmost appreciation and admiration for. She was amazing, incredible leader. And I would not be where I am today in my work if it wasn't for her. But that being said, I also made sure that I took advantage of that new opportunity. One of the things I've talked about before, moving from Canada to Orlando, I didn't want to just do the same things I was doing in Canada in Orlando. I'm like, hey, here's a fresh start. What am I going to do differently because of this? So you can bring guess what? If you bring the old routines to the new place, the old stuff's going to happen again. The stuff that you're disappointed with, the things that you wish you have, it's just going to go back. You might be like, the only difference is moving to Canada to Orlando it'd be the same old stuff in nicer weather, I guess. I don't know. So without seasons. So I just wanted to, as much as I appreciate Kelly, I think it's really important to acknowledge that you create that yourself too. You can't just get a new boss, or you can't just go into a new job and then all of a sudden things get better. What will you do differently because of that opportunity? So here are three things that I share. And the first one is, realize you have a fresh start. And I wrote about this, and I was like a little bit nervous about this because I don't want people to think I'm judgmental about what people wear to work and stuff like this too. But when I got this new job, I know this sounds weird. I decided that no one knew me. No one knew anything about me. And as a teacher, I was going to wear a shirt and tie every day. Now, obviously I wear a shirt, right? But like a button-up shirt and a tie. And it was more about my self-perception than it was about what people thought about how I dressed or anything like this. When I put that tie on every day, it was literally feeling like I was a superhero. Like I was putting on a cape, I was putting on an alter ego, and it just connected me with what I was trying to do, what I was trying to achieve. And it made me feel a little bit more professional and a little bit more focused on doing really well at my job. And, that's something I think about. And like I said, that for me, it could be something totally different. It could be like, hey, every morning I'm going to, meditate for 30 minutes. It's just something I need a little signifier to do this. And, I even said this is not my place to say anything about how people dress for work, which is not why I'm sharing this advice. I just need a change in my self-perception. And that tie could have been a cape at that moment. That subtle change made me feel significantly different. So when I say we would realize a fresh start, I share this. The fresh start is more about the perception of yourself than others. For me, the thing is that I really try to have work on is I really don't focus on criticism unless I really know who you are and that you're trying to help me. But I also don't focus on compliments. And as much as I appreciate them, I'm grateful when people say kind words. I don't want anything to bring me too much down, but I also don't want to be filled up with, things that aren't necessarily authentic too, right? Like I said, hey, listen, I'll take compliments all day. I'm not gonna lie to you, but it's just the person you go to bed with every night is yourself, no matter when or where you are in your life circumstances. So that to me is really, how do you perceive yourself? Once you start perceiving yourself a certain way, I think that's when things start opening doors to you. That's my experience anyway. So the second one, when you have this fresh start, I shared this, that share hopes and aspirations with new leadership. And I remember distinctly, I go to this new school district, and I didn't share this in the newsletter, but it's something I always remember. When I went to this new school district, I had been at another school district 5 years, and they're both it's Canada, very spread over a geographical area. So it's very hard to get from school to school to school, because they're like, it could be like 2 hours from one school to another. And I was at one school district for 5 years, never met the superintendent, couldn't tell you who they were, nothing, never met them. On day one of this new school district, I met the superintendent and their entire team very first day. And it was like really amazing. That was something that was really unique for me at the time. I know a lot of school districts do this, and I think it's really, really powerful, is that new people coming in, they meet people at central office, you build those relationships. And I remember that when I met one of the superintendents, or one of the associate superintendents, or whatever they're called, assistant superintendents, one of them was in charge of educational technology, things like that. And I had been working at that, and I heard that, and I actually remember there's a break. I went specifically to this gentleman, and I said, hey, my name is George Couros. I just want you to let you know, I have been doing tons of work in this area, in my past school district, and I would love to continue with that here. And so if there's any opportunities that you see, please think of me. I would love to do this. If I can, offer some workshops, some opportunities, anything I can do to, really kind of help in your area. And it was like, I kind of threw him off a little bit when I said it. I don't think he was expecting that from someone who had been there for a couple hours in the role. And it was more of like he was shocked. But then about 2-3 weeks earlier, he contacted me. And I don't think I ever spoke to anyone in central office ever in my other role, maybe once or twice. And someone contacted me and said, hey, I remember meeting you. I remember you said that you wanted to kind of focus on this. We have something we would love for you to lead this. And that really kind of, I think when you tell people your hopes and goals, they start thinking, you kind of put it in their head so that, they start thinking of you when some of these opportunities come up. If I said nothing, he would have never called me, because he would have never known. So you got to put that stuff in the head of the people that you're working with. And again, this doesn't matter if you are getting a new boss, you're in a new situation or anything like that. It is, say like, hey, I've been here 20 years and I've known you for 20. Here's something I would like to try. here's something I want to do. If you want that new opportunity, start planting the seeds where that opportunity can grow. Because people will assume that you were the person you were 20 years ago unless you tell them and show them something different. And so put that in their head, because they might make an assumption, oh, this is, George would never do this. Like, but I'm gonna tell you, yeah, I want to do this. So again, that share hopes and aspirations with new leadership. The last one I share is this one. Ask for expectations on what success looks like to your new boss. Maybe I had some incredible foresight. I did this before I even taught officially ever. When I was at the University of Saskatchewan in Canada, we did internships and things like this, and there was an award there. I can't remember what it was, but I really wanted it, and I'm a competitive guy. But I also knew if I won that award, it would make my life so much easier to get a job after. And I always think about this. I think it's kind of like such a different time. I'm going to go into the teaching profession in 1999. So hard to get a teaching job at that time. It was so amazingly tough. There was no teacher shortage. That was not that at that time. So I knew that I had to kind of stand out in some way to, get my name out there. So I remember actually speaking to my cooperating teacher who was going to do my evaluation. And, I met her within, a few minutes. I said, I really want this award. This is something that I would strive for to get this. So in your mind, what would that look like to you for you to provide a nomination for me? Like, what things would I have to do? What would you have to see in my work for me to get this award? And so basically I put in her head, this is something I wanted. And then she set out the criteria. And now I know here's the criteria I need to meet in her eyes to get this nomination. Now, she couldn't give me the award, but she could nominate me. And she actually ended up giving me that nomination. Never got the award, but, she thought I should have. And because I did everything that she said, and I was very, very proud of that. And here, let's say you're applying for a new job. This is advice I give all the time is often you get this question, like, do you have any questions for us? Here's the best question you can ask. If I were to be successful in getting this job, what would that look like to you if I was successful in the role? Like, if I was successful in this job, what does that look like to you? So there's a couple reasons you say that. First of all, they're basically giving a checklist of like, do these things. And then you can kind of say like, oh yeah, I would totally do this by A, B, and C. You can say that, but you're also getting them to visualize you in the role and being successful. And so once you do that, it's kind of like a little bit of a cheat code. Now, if everybody does that in the interview, if everyone, gets the interview and uses that advice, then it's kind of evens playing field. But that is a really great way to kind of just get that, hey, I am like trying to achieve something really great in this opportunity. And then you put it in people's head, but also you have something to strive for. Like, hey, I got to do these things. And that's something to me that really, really matters. So again, the three things I listed is the first one is realize you have a fresh start. And doesn't matter where you are in your career. Doesn't matter if you're a new boss, if you have a new job, fresh start starts today. Every single day you wake up, you have an opportunity for fresh start. It's up to you to take advantage of that. Number two, share hopes and aspirations with new leadership. Say what you want to do. If you're trying to do something new in your work, tell people this is something I'm trying to do. If you see any opportunities, please think of me. If you do not put it in people's heads, they don't necessarily think of you. And then the last one, ask for expectations of what success looks like to your new boss. Don't just say you want to do these things. Ask, what does it look like if I'm successful? Set that standard really high for yourself, but put it in their head. So the thing I share at the top of this email is something I really believe. Everything happens for a reason, but we can accelerate that process if we knock on doors before they open, right? Which I think is a summary of the entire newsletter. So you can check out the newsletter down below. Again, I would love some ideas on potentially how about the book on moving people forward together, maybe a catchy title for that. I'd love to hear in the comments down below. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Please consider sharing this with someone else that maybe have a new opportunity, might be doing something new. But thank you so much for being here. I'm looking forward to recording a bunch of these now that I'm done the first draft of the book. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for all you do. Take care.